Okay, my apologies. We're kind of having a little bit of a later start. Okay, a couple of questions had arisen. Some questions that arisen are, okay, are we dissecting the minks today? Answer to that is no. It's not that we are not anymore. It's just that we also have things to cover while we still have the opportunity to do so. Why don't we just turn around, then they probably will not bother you if they are. Make sense? Then maybe move a little further forward. So their backpack, which I don't know why it's on the table, I mean, that's fine, but then that won't bother you, correct? Okay. So, 5 muscles. What are the names of the muscles you can list in?
Guys, he's asking why you have the computers out. Well,
What do we need to know the quadriceps? I didn't think so. Is what we had up on the board last week. There are 5 of them. Okay, that was one of them. Biceps. No. Triceps was another. Well, some people did. Okay. Now, with this, there are a whole bunch of sets of muscles that you're more than likely responsible for knowing not just the names of them, where they're located, and what they do. So, we're going to take the approach that we're not giving specific structural names for these. I mean, this isn't an upper level anatomy and physiology class. It's just an introduction for you to perhaps help you decide if this is a class for you. Because I think if I'm not mistaken, I counted 11 for anatomy and physiology next year, correct? Okay, if it is, just help me out here because I did write it down, but I just want to, why don't you tell me so then we both know. Put your arms up if you're planning on taking that class. Okay, so there's 2. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. One of you 2 had your hand up last week. Well, you had your hand up last week. Okay, so 10. All right. Okay. So with this, if you know what it is that they actually do, that will hopefully help you answer the question on where they're actually located. So go ahead and take a pick upon any one of these, or you just want to go in the order they are. Okay? So, like we said, if you know what it is they actually do, that will help you out on where they're actually located. So the best way to think of what the biceps does is where is it located on the human body? Right there. Okay? Because what it does is it decreases this angle. And we call that flexion. So we call that flexes arm. Okay? So we have, it was what, action over here. Then we had origin here. And then placement here. Okay. So what this means then is if it has the action of flexing the arm, which it does, we'll just say flexes arm. Okay. Well then, in order to decrease that angle at this joint, what 2 bones are possibly located down on the forearm? Those are muscles. We want bones. That is a muscle. We want bones. Okay? And these bone names are on And in your book that we had wrote down at some point last week, okay, and I distinctly remember this and showing you a picture. That's a joint. We want some bone structures, okay? So on page 941, looks like this here, okay? And let's see if those bone names are on there. And the answer to that is, let's see here. Yep, and nope. Okay, so what that means is the placement has to move towards its origin. So the placement is what does the moving. So when we look at this, we have either the radius slash ulna. That would go under one of these two. Or would we possibly put the scapula, which is the shoulder blade? What does the moving at this? Is this going to move closer? Which it does. So what is this structure name for bones down here?
What page did you say you were on?
941. No. Bones. You're giving me muscles. No. And maybe you have had no introduction to that. You haven't had health class yet. That's why. Okay. So in this case, your forearm bones are your radius and the ulna. Okay? Then the origin that does not move would be that of the scapula. Okay? So what this means then, and this is why these specimens haven't been put away, because the A&P class was done with these a long time ago. But here is the flexion that we're talking about right here. Okay? On the thumb side, that is your radius. On the pinky side is your ulna. And then up here is your scapula. Okay? So here's the origin, and then the insertion is down here. The insertion or placement goes up to its origin. Okay? Then, triceps, where are they located in reference to the biceps? You're on the posterior side. These are on the anterior side right here. The biceps, the triceps are on the back side. So, if this is flexion, if you operate a type of skid loader or a telehandler, what happens when you do this with your boom? You're extending it, is what I'm trying to say. I don't know, maybe you don't have any type of equipment like that.
Relaxes your biceps.
In a matter of speaking, yes, we can go with that. This extends, okay, extends arm. Okay? So in this case, it's still located on the scapula because that does no moving. Okay? Then also inserts on the radius and ulna. Okay? For our practical purposes here. Who knows? Maybe someone, individual from another school saying, well, what egghead is teaching this? It's all wrong. Well, we're just not being specific as what you would in an actual anatomy and physiology class. Okay? So what does that mean to you and that mean to you? Right. So that's why the biceps brachii gets its name, because the placement is here and here, then also up here on what's called the acromion process and coracoid. That's why what we said. We're not going to be that specific at this level. That's more so of an anatomy and physiology process. Okay? So these overlap. It's just the action is different. Flexion, you're decreasing the angle. Extension, you are increasing the angle. Okay, so one of the things to help you out, these work in opposite of one another. These do then as well. Because probably the most common type of athletic injury, especially during track, is going to be what? Pulling a particular muscle. And people say hamstring, which is not incorrect. In other words, they're not wrong. It's one of them aspects to where it's one of a set of 3 muscles that goes with the biceps femoris. Okay? It is also your semitendinosus and your semimembranosus. Those are part of your hamstring group. The quads, somebody said that. Okay? So how many belong in the quads? There's 4. We call the rectus femoris, the vastus lateralis, vastus medialis, and vastus intermedius. Again, that is more so of an upper level class. Okay, so with the rectus femoris, which is located in the leg. Okay. Actually, this got all wrapped up. And I just broke the leg on it. Actually, the wire broke, not the leg. Okay. So this guy isn't very healthy here, but trying to use this as an example. Flexing the leg, this hinge joint, the angle decreases right here. In other words, it becomes smaller. So what type of movement is that? Extension or flexion? That's flexion. So if that's the case, this flexes thigh. Okay? So if these two or counteract one another, what do you suppose these do then?
Probably another one.
The exact opposite. So what is the opposite of flexion? Okay, so this would extend the leg then. Thigh, leg, whichever. Okay. Then what moves? The placement or the origin? The placement moves.
Can you move the skeleton over? Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Like I said, the wire broke on here. Okay. So what we want to do, and naming for this, we don't want to say just pelvis because there's 3 bones that make up the pelvis. Okay. But we'll use the same one for both of them. Okay? Okay? Because the pelvis is made up of 3 bones. You have the ilium on top, the ischium in the middle, and then what's called the ischiotuberosity on the bottom. But again, we're not going into that type of depth. Ischium. And then, if this is way above in the leg, in other words, up here in this pelvic area, if these muscles run the entire length of the femur here, where might the placement of this be? Above the knee or below it? Why would it have to be below? Because if it's located above here, will it do any moving for it? The answer is no. So it has to be below the knee. So in this case, the placement for that, we're just going to use, if you really want to be specific, you would say medial malleolus of the tibia. But nonetheless, we're just going to say tibia. Okay? And that's the reason that we wanted to pick these muscles, because they overlap. The only thing that is different between these two is not just the name, but its action. Difference between these two is its name and its action. A lot of times what happens in the course of naming things in the human body, okay, what is the name of this very large bone we call this? Okay, this is the femur. So that's why you call this the rectus femoris, because it's naming the bone structure. Okay? You also have the femoral nerve that runs in that vicinity. And then another aspect that we would attribute that to is what the A&P students are going through now, and maybe a visual aid for that would possibly help. Where's what?
Where's the nerve at?
Okay. I can possibly illustrate that here in just a moment. Okay. I think it's good to have a visual aid here. Because I can't stress enough getting the names of these bones down. That is vital in order to understand anatomy and physiology. The reason we say that, okay, would be, let's see here, why don't I take this here. This is what the A&P class is going through right now. Okay? So what that means then, okay, this really large artery right here, do you think? It's behind here. It's up somewhere up here on the board. That is the radial artery. Okay? This is the radial artery. Then this one must be what? The ulnar artery. Okay? Then what we see happening going down through the leg, okay? You have this aorta that splits in these iliacs, and then once it starts to divert down here, this really large artery might be what? It's named after the bone. That's the femoral artery, femoral artery. Okay? And then where that branch is down here, it goes down into a deep tissue area. That's why it's called the deep femoral. So knowing the names of these bones is certainly beneficial for you. Okay? Sorry? Oh, I thought you said, what class is this? And then the final question was, what, femoral nerve? Is that what we said? Okay? Well, it probably isn't the best depiction that we have, because we need to see this on the side here. Because what happens is there's 4 plexi in the body. That just means there's a whole bunch of nerves that branch off in a specific area. So down here we have what's called the sacral plexus. That's going to break off into one of the largest nerves in the body, which sometimes in older people, down in this ischial tuberosity, I don't know if you can see that. Move these books here. And typically what can happen is as they are flexing their leg in here, that sciatic nerve gets pinched down here between that ischial tuberosity, okay, and a structure here on the femur. So when you say femoral nerve, that's going to be the next junction that breaks off of the, turn this up. Yeah, you can see just a little bit of it. So the femoral nerve would be about right here. The femoral nerve would be about right here. The femoral nerve, why am I saying that 3 times? Because the person who asked is not watching. Okay? Femoral nerve is about right here. Okay. Okay, so that's about 20 minutes. I think that's long enough. Again, I can't stress that enough. Page 941. It's got the names of the bones on there, and we've added names of bones. These aren't on there, but we went over them in class. There is only 3 names, but there's 4 bones. The frontal, the occipital, and 2 parietal bones. That makes up the cranium. Okay? So it's things like that. Don't let that fall through the cracks. It's easy behind. Okay? So I think that's enough for today. So tomorrow, we're going to start working on muscular structures. Thursday is probably when we'll be over in the lab. Now just be honest. I said, why don't I just ask you? Was that worth your time to look at the mink? Or is it just I'm just going to start stabbing things around here?
No, it was fun.
It was fun.
Worth my time.
Yeah, Andrea learned some stuff.
Okay, what did you learn? Please share.
Learned about muscles.
What muscles? Because those are written down there.
Over by the shoulder, whatever that is.
Trapezius, that was the first one because it's a big triangle.
Yeah, that one.
Oh, okay. So what shape? Well, you won't know the shape. Not because you don't know, because you haven't been taught that yet. Yes, it's a triangle. Oh, one last muscle that we did not go over. It's the deltoid. Okay. Okay. So what happens here with the deltoid, okay, this raises the forearm. Raises the forearm. So that's what we can put down here for an action. Raises forearm. Or no, raises arm, sorry. The forearm is down here, okay? So we want raises arm. Okay? Then, what structure was this? No.
Scopa.
Someone said it. Say that again.
Scapula.
Scapula. Okay? Then, what bone is this? It's humerus. That's where the placement is, the humerus. Well, that's why people think it's called your funny bone, but yeah, typically, just how the way the elbow's set up here, there's a bone structure in there, there's a nerve right underneath there, you hit it, it tingles, it's sore, you say, oh my gosh, I hit my funny bone. Okay, so we will catch up with you next time, going over muscles and bones tomorrow. Vocabulary on Wednesday, we'll be in the lab on Thursday. Plan book might say something different, but that is our schedule over there. We'll catch up to you next time.